It's not going to be as cloudy as we dealt with today, but tomorrow I think it is predominantly cloudy conditions, and then Saturday probably going to see a blend of some sun and clouds. And right now the models are actually maybe saying more sunshine for Saturday. We'll have to talk more about that at 11 o'clock. Anyway, that's what it looks like going into the weekend, but we're really kind of fixated on this weekend, this next week's storm going into Christmas, and we're looking out towards the Pacific Ocean because our forecast models are now starting to hone in and gather data on this chunk. This is a big storm. Look at this. You know, moving into Seattle and out towards British, you get up towards Western Canada. You're talking about a monster storm that's rolling ashore, and the models are saying this is going to tide into the northern jet stream and carve out a mean trough, what we call a trough of low pressure. When you get the jet stream to dig south, we call that a trough. And this is going to be responsible for digging down this huge trough into the United States, and then we're going to watch some sort of a storm develop. So look at the forecast model. This is the European, all right? And what the European is doing, and it's very interesting, again, there's Santa going by. This is, again, Wednesday into Thursday. What the European's doing is a European model, the GFS and the Canadian forecast model, those are our three models we look at, is showing that a storm will develop over the Great Lakes. Again, that's the Pacific storm coming down. It's going to force this jet stream down towards the south. What we're trying to figure out is whether this just remains very strong, carves out this jet, this becomes negatively tilted, and you have this just big storm developing over the Great Lakes or maybe western New York, and then we would see some snows up towards the UP of Michigan, down towards Cleveland, Cincinnati, and here you'll get snows. We'll be on the front end of the system, the warm side, where you get the warm air advection, so we may hit like 55 on Christmas Eve, and then we'll see the cold air come down and maybe end as a period of some light snow. But what is interesting, and I posted last night on Facebook, and people accused me of being a hype artist or a hypester, whatever, that's great. What I was curious about is I've seen this pattern before. I've lived here my entire life, and when these troughs come collapsing down to the coast, you usually see a transfer of energy. And you think about the entire year, it's been the year of coastals for the last 3 months. I mean, coastals. I haven't seen any inland runners. So for you to tell me that the pattern has switched around and we're now going to go back towards, Great Lake cutters, Ohio Valley cutters, where storms are going to stay west of us, I'm going to not really buy that solution, because you think about where we've been the entire season. There is such a thing as atmospheric memory. When you get a pattern that develops, in fact, Gary Lezak from our sister station, I don't know if that's NBC or ABC, in Kansas City came up with the Gary Lezak, or the what's the LC, why am I'm drawing a blank on what his theory was about how these long wave troughs and these long wave patterns develop, and the atmosphere locks into these patterns every late fall and into the winter months. So if you took his principle and his theory, this is Gary's idea, saying we're going to continue to see coastals after coastals after coastals. So you're going to tell me that now all of a sudden we've just changed? I don't know. Maybe this is the correct solution. But what we have to try to figure out as meteorologists is that, are we going to see a transfer of energy and we're going to have to deal with, a surprise coastal storm going into the Christmas week? What we know right now is that there's going to be a big low. It's called a primary low. That's your main energy. Think of an engine. The question is, where is this secondary low going to develop? And is there going to be enough energy to develop it? So again, of course, you have two track solutions. Let's say the secondary low develops, but this storm is so powerful it swings it around, we would see an inland runner. So that would be a heavy rain situation across the mid-Atlantic, and really from Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. And then you get outside of there, then things get wild. I mean, you get west of 87, you get along 80 into here, things can change rapidly. So if you have travel plans, up towards northern Pennsylvania, you might have a situation where it's heavy rain switching to heavy snow, reduced visibilities, and winds going to 50 miles an hour. That is certainly a possibility. So these are the two ideas on the table. Now, last night I posted on my Facebook the Canadian forecast model that all of a sudden showed a coastal storm. I posted it to show that there is not one solution that should be taken as gospel. And I posted that, and I thought I did an okay job. Maybe I could have done a better job explaining why I posted it. So as I posted that, the Europeans switched more towards the east and said, the coastal idea is certainly possible. So I want to show you, and stay with me on this because I'll explain this, and let's do this together. This is the big jet stream dip that I just showed you on that one slide. Here is your primary low that's sitting up towards the Great Lakes. Now again, living here my entire life, I always see this situation happen where the primary low transfers energy towards the coast. Now what the European from this afternoon showing is that we're trying to tighten up some sort of low off of Hatteras. Now I guess the sub-question I'd have to ask is it going to be over Ocean City, Atlantic City, or is it going to be further down towards the south? Now, usually, when you have these big dips in the jet stream, on the northwest or northeast section of where you get the trough that digs in, the northeast section of that's where you see the convergence zone. So if we look at the 700 millibar, there's a lot of lift going on. Lifting indicates where an area of low pressure will start to form, and that's where this European showing it, somewhere north of Hatteras. So the European is saying it's very possible a coastal low may be spawned. And in fact, if you look at what's going on at the surface, still on the European, this would be Thursday morning, so Wednesday night into Thursday morning, Christmas Day morning, look what's going on. You have this coastal trying to develop, right on top of Hatteras up towards Pax River and out towards Salisbury, Maryland. And it's trying to close it off in here. 996 millibar, here's your 540 line. That's where your rain snow line is out towards western Maryland. This is a heavy rain situation. But as the low collapses, or the low closes off, that is, and this is the primary low starting to die, you get the cold air rushing to the coast, and you'd get a situation where you're switching over to snow. So now, this is what we're looking at. Now, last night, this model was showing this being a huge blizzard over the Midwest. And I'm using the B word because 970, 960 millibar storm, actually I think it was showing a 950 millibar storm. That's pressure readings. 950 is a very, very strong storm. And if you have that type of pressure, you're going to get a wind response. And that's why the winds would be insane. So you can use the B word. It's fine. But now we have a whole different situation in less than 24 hours. So again, not one solution should be taken as gospel. Now, if we look at the GFS, I mean, I'm going to give some credit to the GFS because it did nail the weekend storm saying it was going to be nowhere. So we have to pay attention to this. But notice again, the isobar is trying to swing towards the coast, an indication. This model's even saying possibility of a quick coastal development. Here's your primary low, and notice how it's trying to throw back moisture to the coast. Now, this is a very negatively tilted trough. What do I mean by that? Or negatively tilted jet. Negative tilt means when it's going back more on a, southeast to northwest direction. So it's negatively tilted. If it's positive, it kind of stays open, and that's when you really don't see big storm developments. When it turns negative, you see big storm development. So this is showing a negatively tilted jet, but it's keeping the primary low very, very strong over the Great Lakes. And again, that would be a western track keeping the mild air coming up the coast. So that's the GFS. I believe this is the GFS ensembles, a little bit of a different version, showing all of its members blended together, smoothed out together, showing that that jet is actually a little more open. And when you see a little more of an open jet, it's neutrally tilted, we call it. That would allow for maybe more of an eastern situation, a jog more towards the east. That's just a look at the ensembles. And I wanted to show you, what model is this? I think this is the GFS. I got to look at my other computer. This is the GFS operational showing just that. Look at the coastal development trying to go on over the Delmarva. I mean, this is still a very strong storm, and this is still a lot of warm air. Don't get me wrong, still heavy rain. But it's indicating, I mean, what we're doing is we're looking at these models trying to figure out what they're telling us. Well, I'm not going to look at this model and say, that's the forecast, let's go to air with this. You can't do that because these are models, they're guidance, they're guiding you to the correct forecast solution. But sometimes you got to step away and go, look, I've seen this before, it's not right. I was going to use another word, I don't know if I can use that word on the live stream. The bosses certainly wouldn't like it. So that's what the GFS tells us. And again, trying to suggest that maybe there would be something different. Now, the GEM, the Canadian forecast model, I posted last night and got yelled at. You know who you are, because I know you're watching right now. Look how it's trying to close off a low off the coast. And that's actually a little bit further south than the European. Trying to take all this energy. This is the low is further south. Here's your trough. Here's the jet coming down. You have a merge of the northern and southern jet. So you have a phased situation going on. And here's your coastal reflection, your coastal low developing. Again, this would be taking it right up the coast. Not keeping the primary stronger. Coastal would turn stronger, and then you probably would have some kind of cutoff low, and it would just be a very, very gusty day for a Thursday. So let's take it all together and put the worst and the best case scenarios on the table. And we'll start with the best. Let's start with good news. The best case scenario would be this storm is going to stay more towards the west. So we're going to take a split, between the Europeans coastal and the GEMs coastal to the GFSs. I'm going to hang this storm more towards the west. Now, that would be heavy rain. Wind gusts are going to be, regardless of the best or worst case scenario, winds are going to be a big deal with this one. Initially, no. Yeah, they'll be picking up Wednesday, but I think it's more so a Thursday deal as the pressure gradient tightens up. This low goes towards the north, high builds off towards the south and west of that. You're going to funnel in all this wind. I mean, this is a forecast model. I believe this is the European showing. I mean, this surge of wind coming down. Best case scenario would see wind gusts around 30 miles per hour. All right, that's not a problem. Maybe some isolated power outages, especially as you get up towards the higher elevations into Frederick County. You get into south central Pennsylvania, you get into central Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley, Poconos, lower Hudson Valley. That's where you may get 30, 40 mile an hour winds. It's possible you get some isolated power outages. Now, this would be Christmas Day. And it would end as some flurries. I think everybody could get some snow bands in here because this storm is just going to occlude and just become a bomb and just sit up towards southeastern Canada. Now, worst case scenario is we see a coastal development. You get this primary low that's going to swing energy down towards the coast. It's going to develop off the Delmarva. Everybody's still going to see heavy rain. I don't think this is a full-fledged snowstorm. But it would be something like as the storm develops and it becomes very strong, there's a cold air source up towards the north. There's a cold air source, all right? That's not in question. So you'd see a rapid change over to snow, and there would be some accumulations to speak of. The wind is still going to be, again, part of this solution. But this is the worst case scenario because your low is coming up the coast, you're closer in, and you're going to see, again, the pressure gradient tighten up even more. So you'd get something like a 40, 50 mile an hour wind gust. And right along the coast, depending on if this storm is a coastal storm that's developing right over the Jersey Shore and into New York City and then going up towards the Pioneer Valley in Massachusetts and into Litchfield Hills in Connecticut or Berkshires, you might talk about a 50, 60 mile per hour wind gust. That's the worst case scenario. Now, I'm talking about a broad area because it's a broad storm and everybody may be, I don't know where you're going. If you're going to Grandma's house down the road, you're fine. I mean, but if you're traveling the Mass Pike or if you're traveling 80 or you're going somewhere, it's going to be a problem. So this is a pretty big storm, and if you're flying, leave now. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's going to be a bumpy ride. I hope